In this video, I've titled it Everything You Wanted to Know About Lines. I will say that is actually a bit of a lie. There is quite a lot of things that are not covered in this video about lines that you might need to know in your future. In fact, there's a whole branch of mathematics called linear algebra that focuses on these lines. And really, there's just a wealth of knowledge out there. These are very, very common things to deal with. And on the other hand, did you really even want to know this? So again, is it really, everything you want to know about lines, or is it everything we're forcing you to learn about lines? Regardless, let's talk about this. Now, in this first one here, it says we want to sketch a graph of the equation y equal to 3x minus 1. And we could go ahead and make a table for this. Tables always work for any graphs, but they can be, as we said, tedious last time. And so there's a little shortcut here. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but this number 3 here is going to be called the slope. And this number -1 is going to be called, well, partly of the y-intercept. And so it turns out that if you want the shortcut to graphing a line, you go onto the y-axis where the y-intercept b tells you there. And then my slope is 3, so that means I'm going to go up 3 over 1. And once I have 2 points, I connect them, and that's my line. So again, this is a shortcut that only works for lines, but if you know it, you can save yourself a lot of time in graphing lines. Okay, so let's talk about the slope formula here. This is how you'd want to find the slope of a line. Now, I showed you the shortcut already where you just have the number that's in front of the x, but what if you don't have the equation for the line? What if you just know that there's these 2 points on the line and you want to find the slope? This is what you're going to use the slope formula for. And it's definitely a formula you're going to want to know. It's pretty commonly used. So with that said, let's go ahead and use it here. Let's find the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points here. Now, just like the distance formula, it doesn't actually matter which one you call the first point or the second point. So I'll just do it in the order they're written. The second y value is 5. The first y value is -2. The second x value is 3. The first x value is 1. And then we're going to go ahead and work this out here. 5 minus -2 is 7. 3 minus 1 is 2. So my slope is 7 over 2, or 3.5. Before I go any further, I just want to point out what that would mean in a graph. So slope is also thought of as rise over run. So when you were doing a slope of 7 over 2, that means you're going to go up 7 and right 2. That's how you're going to have a slope of 7 over 2. Just keep that in mind when you are graphing lines where the slope is a fraction. That's the general process for it. Okay, now what can we tell with the slope? It turns out the slope is going to let us know whether the lines are parallel or perpendicular. If they're parallel, that means they're going to have the same slope, and they will be perpendicular if their slopes are negative reciprocals. Now, what's a negative reciprocal? If one of them is 2/3, the other one would be -3/2. So you have to do reciprocal, and you have to do negative there in order to find the slope of the perpendicular line. Okay, so again, we have our slopes of parallel perpendicular. The last thing we're going to focus on in this video is we're going to learn how to find the equation of a line. And there are 2 things you're going to really want to know for that. That is something called the slope-intercept form. This is the way that we prefer to write our lines. Y equals mx plus b. It's very useful because you can immediately read off the slope and the y-intercept. That's why it's called the slope-intercept form. On the other hand, it's not always the most easiest to write down if you're given a random problem. So sometimes you have to actually solve for y and so on. regardless, that's the ideal. You should want to try to aim for the slope-intercept form. The other one that's very useful in these types of problems is called the point-slope form. This is used when you know what the slope is and you know one of the points on the line, but you don't know the y-intercept. This is a very commonly used one. However, you pretty much never want to leave your answer looking like this. So this is like an intermediate step on the problem, not the final answer step. However, it is still very, very useful. Okay, so how are we going to do this? I gave you, in this case, I have 2 points, and I want to find the line that goes through them. I do want to point out something here, that there are a large variety of problems that ask you to find the equation of a line. What they need to do is they need to give you 2 pieces of information, but there are a lot of pairs of information they might give you. So they might tell you, in this case, 2 points. Or they might tell you, here's the slope and here's a point. Or they might say, here's a point and we know it's parallel. So they're going to give you 2 pieces of information, but which 2 pieces is going to vary. However, no matter which 2 pieces they give you, you always want to find the slope and find a point. And once you have that, you can plug it in and get your answer. So how am I going to start finding my slope? Well, the slope formula says second y minus first y over second x minus first x. In fact, that's the exact same one we already worked out. That has a slope of 7/2. Now we need a point here. The thing is, this is something that always kind of amazed me when I was learning this in the first place, is we have 2 different points here, and you might think that depending on which one you use, you might get different answers, but that's actually not what happens. No matter which one you use, you're going to get the same final answer, because there's only one correct answer to the problem. So there's like freedom in how you go about it, but no matter which way you do it, assuming you don't make any mistakes, you're going to get the same correct answer. So I'm going to use the second one just because I like to avoid negative numbers if I can. Once I have my slope and my point, I use my point-slope form. Y minus the y value is the slope times x minus the x value. I'm going to go ahead and simplify this. I'll distribute the 7/2 in. That's going to be 21 over 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 5 to both sides. As I said, we like to have it in the slope-intercept form. We'd like the y to be by itself. So we'd have 7/2 x, and then let's see here. Negative 21/2 plus 5 is going to be negative 11/2. Feel free to use your calculator to help you out with that. And so that right there is going to be the line that goes through these 2 points. And you can pretty much guarantee you're going to see problems in the future that ask you to find the equations of lines.